everybody to Riolo's Photos. I am Christopher M. Riolo, the owner and lead photographer at Christopher M. Riolo, L.L.C. We're going to be talking about some new Nikon rumors with the Nikon Z8 as of March 2023. Before we get started, please make sure you subscribe down below. Check out my portfolio, which is always up top right here, and see what type of work that I'm into. As usual, I always promote Jason Lanier. He's my idol, and that's the person and the type of photography I like to get into. If you're interested in booking with me, so please give me a call if you're in my local area at this number right here, and give me a phone call, shoot me a text message on my Facebook, cell phone, IG, doesn't matter. Long as you guys are direct messaging me, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But let's go ahead and dive into it for the recent rumors with the Nikon Z8. So according to a new article, there's never been too much action for the Z8 as of lately. When we look at the specifications for the Nikon Z8, it looks like the Nikon, the Nikon is going to make a perfect camera. The Z8 will be a model that sits between the Z7 II and the Z9. That's awesome. I'm hoping that this camera is going to be as far as like an introduction to photographers that are more mid-level, and hopefully the price range will be suitable for me and you, like the everyday photographer. I don't consider myself a beginner anymore, but I'm definitely not up pro level where I want to be. So that's why I started up a YouTube channel. So like I said, subscribe down below. The Nikon Z8 will get a new sensor. This is surprising coming from Nikon, because Nikon works with Sony, and now that they're competing with Sony with the full frame mirrorless cameras, they are switching sensors. That kind of surprises me to a certain extent, because Nikon has traditionally used Sony sensors in the past, and pretty much in all their cameras. So they're going to be updating with a new sensor, and it looks like they're no longer going to be going with the Sony sensors, which I personally like the Sony sensors. Nikon will develop a completely new sensor to compete with the A7R5. There are many more specifications that are going to be revolutionary, like cinematic quality video. This is where it gets interesting with the Nikon Z8. The Nikon Z8 could certainly help you with videography, with the ability to record 8K 12-bit at a maximum frame rate of 60 frames per second. Now that doesn't say ProRes RAW, it doesn't say 12-bit RAW. It looks like it's going to be able to handle 8K 12-bit at 60 frames per second with in-camera. So I'm sure it's going to be capable to be able to do at least 4K or maybe 6K or 8K. Excuse me, I do apologize for coughing, got a little raspy voice. You can get the ProRes RAW update on all Nikon cameras by sending your camera into Nikon, and they will give you the upgrade. I'm shooting with a Nikon Z6 right now, Mark I, that just came back with the ProRes RAW output to the Ninja 5 external recorder, which I absolutely love, and it was worth the $199 upgrade. I'm hoping to upgrade to the Nikon Z6 Mark III, because I'm very interested in shooting at 4K 120 slow motion, and that's what they're offering, and I believe it's going to be offered into the Nikon Z8. Speaking of slow motion, if you really want to shoot high quality slow motion, you can have the option with 4K 120 frames per second. This way you can slow down the image up to 5 times, a possibility that we haven't encountered with the Nikon Z9. Nikon Z9 has been given the option of making raw images with a firmware update. Now we're talking about video. This is no news. We've all seen the Nikon mirrorless cameras and able to shoot ProRes RAW or RAW output with an upgrade, sending your camera through Nikon. It only takes about 5 days and you get your camera back immediately. I was hesitant towards doing that in the past, but now I actually have the camera back. It didn't take too long. Nikon Z8. The best focus mechanism in history. Well, we will see about that. Focusing has never been easier and simpler than ever before. The Nikon Z8 will automatically detect multiple subject types and adjust its behavior accordingly. The Nikon Z8 can recognize subjects such as people, animals, birds, and vehicles, which is pretty cool if you're a wildlife photographer and or if you're a sports photographer. This would be awesome to you. I specifically like to do wildlife myself. I'd love to get into sports photography. Let's see how quick it's going to be able to actually react on that autofocus, because sometimes when I shoot video like this, it should be focusing on my eyes, and sometimes when I look away down at my computer, it kind of focuses on the background, so that, or my hand. If you can see, it just might do that right now. See how it's focusing on my hand? We want to keep it right here. So we will see with the new Nikon Z8. A lot of people were expecting the Nikon Z8 announcement to be dropped this past couple of weeks, and a lot of people are disappointed that it has not been dropped. I'm anticipating Nikon to announce the Nikon Z8 and the Nikon Z6 Mark III, possibly roughly around July. That's what I'm anticipating to be, as far as an announcement to be released, the actual camera for sale. I'm anticipating at the end of the year, around Christmas time. They're saying third quarter of 2023, but I'm thinking that they're going to be releasing this right around Christmas time to try and get to entice people to purchase this, these new cameras come around the holidays. Let's see. So the Nikon Z8 is anticipated to have a very fast burst mode that can capture up to 30 frames per second, both mechanically and electronically. That's pretty cool. We also see this with the Nikon Z9, in which can shoot 30 frames per second in JPEG. Me personally, I don't like shooting JPEG, I shoot all RAW. Just got some crazy thunder outside. The skies just opened up. It looked like sun was going to come out and it was going to be beautiful, and just out of nowhere, heavy thunder. I'm not sure if everybody heard that, but that was pretty cool and interesting. On a side note, yesterday in upstate New York, I seen that the northern lights just came out of nowhere and went over what I consider my home city, which is Buffalo, New York. Awesome. I wish that I was aware of this and I would have went out there last night. I would have done some northern light photography last night. So kudos to everybody that got those shots last night. Moving on. Shooting with the Nikon Z8 in the dark environments. Now, in my personal experience when it comes to, I have a Nikon Z6 Mark I and I also have the Nikon Z7 Mark II. The Nikon Z6 is a 24.7 megapixel sensor, and the Nikon Z7 II is a 45.7, I believe. In my experience, I get sharper quality images in low lighting conditions with the Z6, and it also has better autofocusing and low light conditions. So with a 61 megapixel sensor with the Nikon Z8, if that's what they're going with, we will see with that. Me personally, I'm not going to be looking at the Z8. I'm going to be looking to get the Nikon Z6 Mark III because it's perfect, and the news is coming out as it's going to be roughly around 32 megapixel sensor, which is perfect for me, and I would like to get the capabilities to shoot 4K at 120 frames per second to get that nice super slow motion movement in my videos. Let's see. The Nikon Z8 will have a clear, very high quality viewfinder. Sorry about that, guys. I cut out because I had too much memory used up on the SSD card in the back of the Ninja 5. Alright, as I said, no surprise with the Viewfinder. 3.69 million pixels in the Viewfinder. You won't notice any lag. You get a 3.2 touchscreen. Tilted screen only tilts back at a certain angle. I wish that they would change this, because I'm sure, just like anybody else that's a studio portrait photographer and you shoot a lot of vertical images, you would like to have a tilted vertical screen as they did with the Nikon Z9. I love that option. Why they haven't done this yet, I don't know. Yeah, I hope Nikon finally changes this soon, because I would even like to see a screen where it can tilt back on the normal, like Z6s, Z7s. It can hit that angle, then you can turn the camera around vertically, and then you can have a tilted screen vertically. And also, if you're shooting videos like YouTube channels like this, you can flip it around and still do YouTube channels and stuff like that, like vloggers. And I mean, vloggers would love a screen like that on a Nikon Z6, Z7, Z9, Z8, whatever. I just think it comes in handy, and a lot of Sony cameras do this, and they need to step up their game in their screens and able to tilt them both ways, vertically, horizontally, and turn the screen around for vloggers. I used a Nikon Z6 with the extension to the Ninja 5 external recorder, so I could still vlog and do YouTube channels, but it would come in real handy if I could just see it on my camera for quick videos if I'm out in the field, of just presenting, talking to you guys and presenting photos of a photo shoot or videos of a photo shoot. So that would come in handy. The price range is talked upon. Sorry, got a little moth in here. Got a storm that just came by, and now there's moths flying around. Let's see, the price range, $4,500 to $5,000. If I'm going to spend that amount of money, I'm going to buy a Nikon Z9. They're saying that the Z8 is going to be a step below the Z9, but the Z9 is more expensive. Okay, so it is cheaper than the Z9, but the rumor is the Nikon Z8 is going to have a 61 megapixel sensor. It can do almost everything a Z9 can do, and the Z9 is only a 45.7 megapixel sensor, roughly. So it's pretty hard to think that this is going to be a step below, depending on what it can accomplish. I do know that the Nikon Z9 has a lot better focusing system, and it's a lot faster for wildlife photographers and sports photography. So I would love to do if I'm going to spend $5,000 above on a camera, it's going to be for a Nikon Z9. Let's see, what else we got going on here? Like I said, the new Nikon Z8 is actually the small version of the Nikon Z9. Nikon Z9 is a professional camera that can record 8K video, take 46 megapixel megapixel photos, 11 megapixel photos at a burst of 120 photos per second. The Z8 also has many of those features. Same thing in this article. It just doesn't, I don't get it. If they're going to put a 61 megapixel sensor in this camera, it can do the same thing as a Z9. You're getting best of both worlds at a cheaper price. So I don't know, we will see. Hopefully it could actually keep up with the Nikon Z9. But it's to be determined right now, because I'm just not convinced yet. As I said before, the Sony a7R Mark V is a very competitive camera. There are a lot of similarities between the Nikon Z8. For example, both cameras have a 61 megapixel camera. 60 megapixel sensor, and you can record 8K professional videos. Both the Z8 and the a7R Mark V have a sensor shift high-res mode. Once again, this is where you can do the 240 megapixel photos. I just don't see this camera coming out and being cheaper than the Z9. I think it's going to be more expensive. Other than that, guys, the anticipation of this camera is just insane. I mean, there's cameras up there like the Sony, like I said, the A7R5 is a 61 megapixel camera. I think this is more of a competitive thing more than anything. The A7R5 can shoot 8K at 20 frames per second. The Z8 can shoot 8K to 60 frames per second. So they're trying to outdo outdo Sony. So you have a resolution of 61 frames per second, or 61 megapixels sensor. Same thing with the Sony A7R5. Burst mode, Nikon Z8, 30 frames per second. Sony A7R5, 10 frames per second. Max video resolution, 8K, 60 frames per second. And the Sony 8K, 25 frames per second. The price of the Sony A7R5 is $3,890. The price anticipation for the Nikon Z8 is going to be $4,500 to $5,000. I don't know. Tell me, you guys, what you think, because at this price range, I have the Nikon Z9, Nikon Z8. So now with the Nikon Z9, it's a 46 megapixel camera. It has the same burst mode, same max resolution for video, and the price is only a $496 difference. Which camera would you be interested in? In my experience, the lower the megapixel, where it comes to maybe roughly around 25 megapixels or 30 megapixels, is better in low lighting conditions. With the Nikon Z9, I've seen nothing but great things for fast autofocusing system. 46 megapixel sensor, I mean, that's the same thing as my Nikon Z7 II, and it can shoot 30 frames per second, 8K 60 frames per second. So at the same time, I don't understand why this camera is going to be cheaper. The megapixels are supposed to be less than Nikon Z9, but it's going to be cheaper. If that's the case, I will buy it. I definitely will, long as the autofocusing system for wildlife and sports photography is just as quick as it is with the Nikon Z9. So yeah, there it is, guys. Nikon is trying to make a big splash. Once again, like I said, they're going to make a big splash, and they're trying to take out the competition. And another thing that kind of worries me is all the sensors that they used in the past has been Sony sensors in their cameras. Now switching to a different sensor possibly could have been some type of competitive I don't know, some type of competitive conflict maybe, and maybe that's why Nikon is switching to a different sensor with this camera, and maybe future cameras, we don't know. Hopefully they'll be announcing this product soon, and the reason why they're switching sensors. Because of right now, to me, if it's not broken, you shouldn't fix it. All the sensors are awesome in my Nikon Z6 Mark I and the Z7 Mark II. I'm interested myself in the Nikon Z6 Mark III, but if the Z8 can do the same thing as the Z9 with a higher megapixel, I might go for that camera, especially if it's at the low end of $4,500, because I could just spend an extra $1,000 and get a better camera, more megapixels. It just makes sense. So let me know, guys. Make sure you subscribe down below. If you're interested in doing a shoot in upstate New York, check out my portfolio as usual. It's right up top. If you're in my area, call me, and it's always here. You have a good day, and hopefully this weather is going to break soon. I'm going to go enjoy the thunderstorm, and I hope that it's a clear night and we see the northern lights down here, because up in Buffalo, the last 2 nights it's been gorgeous, and it looks like we were in Antarctica and or in Alaska or Iceland, and they were shining bright the last few days. I regret not knowing about this, which I would have been up in Buffalo doing photos with my camera late last night. Have a good day. Make sure you subscribe.